Hey, man, I'm not kidding you. I'm going kidding.
Hi, I'm Keith Miles. Author of Bob Dylan in London.
And I've been to London.
He's going to clean up that glass, man.
And Bob Dylan in the Big Apple.
Went to the Big Apple. Took a bite.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
You mentioned the Savoy a couple of times, so let's talk about that place, because yeah, like you said, they did the iconic Subterranean Homesick Blues video right out front, or in the alley to the side of it. I want to say I heard in another interview you did that there's no marking of that, right? There's nothing still acknowledging that. That's disappointing. Do you think that'll change?
No, it's one of the things we wanted to do. Like I say, we had a lot of things on our checklist, Jackie and I, what we wanted to do to mark, how Dylan is. There are plaques in London for all sorts of stuff, but, it's one side of that particular alley. The joy is it's still exactly the same, and up until recently they had scaffolding back up again. So you look at that and you think, cripes. I am amazed that every time I go there, and we take tours there, we take the cards with us, and people do that, and they take the pictures, and it's wonderful. I'm always amazed that there aren't queues of tourists waiting for their turn, and why wouldn't you want to go and see that, in all its glory? But on one side, it's the Queen's Chapel, and on the other side, it's the Savoy Hotel, and neither are keen on putting a plaque up there. I've asked the Queen through the person that does it, but it was a very polite no. Savoy Hotel, which I find a wonderful place, and like I say, I think any tourist in London should go to the American Bar. They actually have a lovely little museum in the bar of all the Hollywood stars.
That's like a historic site in London, right?
Yeah, this is the original. The Savoy Hotel cocktail book was the original sort of template for most of the cocktails that we know. All of the Hollywood stars were there. The Savoy Hotel themselves, and it is a lovely place that you can go into and not feel out of place at all, which is wonderful. And the Savoy Hotel themselves are more keen on the Hollywood stars than they are on the Dylan time there. I think as we know from the film, he kind of trashed the joint, and it was a big party. But I mean, this is a huge part of rock and roll history being made there, with the Pennebaker film. Subterranean Homesick Blues is pretty much the first real music video. And we tell the tale in the book about how that was made. There in fact were 3 goes at that, and it's the middle one that they nailed actually in the Savoy Steps alleyway, which I mean, and they did in one take, and it's fabulous, and it's pretty much the first music video. There been very few that have been better over the last how many decades. It's so iconic, it's so beautifully done, it works so well.
Well, it's not just the iconic music video, but one of my favorite Dylan stories of his whole history is from the Don't Look Back movie, and you just referenced it, that big raucous party that was captured on film. And, he had that sort of infamous dust-up with Donovan. That's the sort of thing that if I went to the Savoy, I would want to stay in the room where they had that argument,
Threw that glass in the street.
Yeah, this is
Who did it? Now, you better tell me, man. If somebody don't tell me who did it, you're all going to get the fuck out of here and never come back.
I'm not giving you shit.
What'd you do it for, man? What'd you throw a glass in the street for?
I didn't throw a glass in the street.
Well, show me the person that did. If you don't have him here, man, I'm not going to 10. You better take responsibility for it. I know 1,000 cats that look just like you, man. Talk just like you.
Oh, fuck off.
Wow.
You're a big noise, you know?
I know it,
On the
man. I
international-
know I'm a big
you.
noise. I'm bigger noise than you, man.
I'm a small noise.
Right.
I'm a small cat.
That's right.
Listen, if I'd have thrown a...
Hey, you're anything you say you are, man.
I'm
You say you're a
nothing.
small... You're nothing.
I'm nothing.
I believe you.
Nothing.
I believe you, man.
Can you talk about a little bit, because there might be some people watching who aren't familiar with that story, can you talk about what happened at the Savoy with that party between Bob and Donovan?
Well, I think if you look at that, people have said down the years that Dylan was a bit unkind to Donovan. I don't think he really was. I think he was a little bit, they used, and actually on that particular tour, they would tour around England, but they would come back to the Savoy. So there are great stays in other hotels throughout England, but essentially when they could, they would come back to Party Central at the Savoy Hotel. And that suite that they had there, which is basically a floor, I think it was 70 quid a night or something ridiculous. So we've got in the book, which is like, and they loved it there. Dylan was basically holding court. The Beatles came, Joan Baez came, everyone came, and what you have in the film in Don't Look Back is kind of that first sort of real sort of rock and roll style documentary, frankly. And we look at some of the tales that are there. We tell the story of the Beatles and the bath. We tell the story of the Who Threw the Glass. And again, people normally think it's this. It's a glass, but it's not. It's a glass shelf. They had these very beautiful, ornate Egyptian sort of arrangement, sort of shelves in the bathrooms, and it was one of those that someone had obviously, hit too hard and it had smashed on the floor. So they'd obviously tried to sort of sweep it up and put it out the window.
Oh. Okay. See, that's interesting. I learned that from your book. I thought it was just like a drinking glass, and that's what made like the scene initially funny to me, because I thought Bob was getting upset over something fairly trivial. But if they're breaking furniture and throwing the evidence out of the window, that is actually sort of a reasonable thing to get upset about.
Yeah, no, I think we've got Bob off the rap here for that one. I think he's quite, and you can see that they are, they used it to party, but you can see quite a lot from the film that Bob's not particularly kind of okay with that. He's holding court, but he's not going to be trashing the place. This is not his kind of way of being. He's a nice boy from Minnesota. He's not going to trash the joint. And I think that comes from. I mean, you see lots of pictures where all the pictures are askew and there's people lounging around everywhere. But essentially, he's using it so people can come and talk to him and he can still, sort of create in that environment, and you see him at the typewriter sort of quite often through that. He's still working. Dylan is not an artist who will ever have that normal cycle of record an album, tour an album, come back and think, oh, cripes, I've got no more songs. I better sit down and write. He's doing all the processing in the one go. He's still creating while he's touring, and he's, he's very, very different in that regard. But the Savoy is integral to that whole rock and roll Dylan sort of image, really. And again, it's in London. It's an important part of his career trajectory is to come to London.
I'm not taking no fucking responsibility for cats I don't know, man. I got enough responsibility with my friends and my own people.
I agree.
No, come on.
I was out there.
I don't care who is. Hey,
who
don't.
did it.
I don't want none of your shit, man.